The sky of Kelvar 9 burned red as the clear descended. The insectoid creatures swarmed across the colony's fertile plains, tearing through everything in their path. The Kelvarians, a peaceful and scholarly species, were not warriors. Their defenses were few, their fleets scattered across other systems. Dr. Ren Tallis stood on the balcony of the Central Research Dome, watching the distant explosions. His four slender hands shook as he activated the emergency beacon. "This is Kelvar 9, he said into the transmitter, his voice calm but heavy. "We are under attack. We request assistance from any Galactic Union vessel within range." The beacon pulsed, carrying the message across the stars. Ren had done his part. Now he could only wait and hope someone would come before it was too late. Far across the void, in the coldest part of the Sol system, the signal reached Pluto. The outpost there was small, its population barely a few thousand. But those few thousand were not ordinary humans. Life on Pluto was not easy. The temperature outside could freeze steel. The thin atmosphere required every colonist to wear suits when outside. And yet, generation after generation, they had survived. Not just survived, but adapted. Captain Maris Kane sat in the command center of the Plutonian Defense Corps, sipping recycled coffee and reviewing reports on food stores when the distress signal came through. Her second in command, Lieutenant Voss, looked up from his station. "Captain, incoming Union priority signal. Kelvar 9 is requesting emergency aid. Full planetary invasion," Maris frowned. "How far is the nearest Union fleet?" Voss checked the star maps. 3 jumps away at minimum. "They won't arrive for weeks." Maris stood and walked to the display. The map showed Kelvar 9 as a green dot, flashing urgently. "And us?" 2 jumps, Voss said. "We're the closest, but..." "Captain, we don't have a fleet. We have 6 dropships, 4 gunships, and a few hundred trained soldiers." "That's it," Maris smiled faintly. "Then we'll just have to make them count." Voss stared at her. "You're serious?" "We are Plutonians," Maris said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. "No one survives this rock unless they learn to fight for every breath. If Kelvar 9 falls, the clear won't stop there. They'll come for others. Maybe for us too. Better to meet them now while we still have the choice." Within hours, the entire outpost buzzed with activity. Technicians fueled the ships. Soldiers loaded weapons, checked suits, and strapped down crates of supplies. Some of the younger colonists gathered near the hangar to watch. A boy no older than 12 called out, "Captain Kane, are you really going to fight an entire invasion with just us?" Maris paused before boarding the command ship and smiled at him. "Sometimes a small pack of wolves is all you need to drive off a bigger predator." The boy grinned, though his eyes were wide. The Plutonians had always been seen as hard people, cold as their frozen world. But in that moment the boy saw something else, a spark of courage that warmed the entire hangar. The jump to Kelvar 9 was rough. The Plutonian fleet was not built for speed or comfort. Every deck plate rattled, every system groaned as they pushed the ships to their limit. But no one complained. On the second day of the journey, Maris gathered the troops in the briefing room. The holoprojector displayed an image of Kelvar 9's cities now under siege. "We don't know how many clear there are," Maris said. "We don't know their numbers or their weapons. What we do know is this. If we do nothing, Kelvar 9 will fall and billions will die. We will not allow that to happen. Not while we have ships to fly and hands to fight." A murmur ran through the room, not fear but determination. "We are few," Maris continued, "but that has always been true of us. Pluto taught us how to live with little. Now we will teach the clear that lesson too." The soldiers nodded. Some grinned. They were ready. Meanwhile, on Kelvar 9, Ren Tallis and the other scientists huddled in the underground shelters. The cities above them were falling one by one. Communications with the outer colonies had gone silent. "Any response?" one of the younger researchers asked. Ren checked the signal log. "The Union acknowledged the message, but their fleets are too far. Only one outpost has sent word, a human colony from Sol system. They are on the way." The younger researcher's eyes widened. "Humans, the Deathworlders." "They cannot help us. There are too few of them." Ren looked at the signal again. The human message had been brief. "Hold on. We are coming." There was no hesitation in the words, no fear. Ren allowed himself a small smile. "Few, yes. But perhaps that is enough." Hours later, the Plutonian ships emerged from jump space and approached Kelvar 9. The planet below looked beautiful from orbit. Vast oceans, lush continents, glowing cities. But the beauty was scarred by fire and smoke. Ground defenses are failing, Voss reported. Clear swarm detected on 3 continents. They're spreading fast. Maris stood at the viewport, her hands clasped behind her back. Then we go where it's worst. The dropships detached from the fleet like silver arrows diving into the atmosphere. The sky lit with streaks of fire as they entered. Inside the lead dropship, the soldiers checked their gear one last time. The cabin rattled as the ship descended. Maris stood at the front, gripping a handrail. "This is what we trained for," she said over the comms. "We are Plutonians. We do not run. We do not yield. Today, the galaxy will see why they call us Deathworlders." The soldiers roared in response. The ship broke through the clouds, and the battlefield came into view. The dropship slammed into the ground, throwing dust and debris into the air. Before the ramp had even lowered, the Plutonians were already moving. They hit the ground in formation, weapons raised, helmets scanning for targets. Captain Maris Kane stepped out behind them, her visor sweeping the battlefield. The city of Kelvar 9 stretched ahead, or what was left of it. Towers burned, streets were torn apart, and the bodies of destroyed defense drones littered the ground. And everywhere, the Clier, the insectoid creatures, were tall, their dark chitin glinting under the pale sun. They moved like a tide, swarming over everything, their claws tearing through walls and machines alike. "Voss," Maris said calmly, "set up a perimeter. I want gun emplacements at the north and west streets. Drones on the rooftops. We're turning this district into a fortress." Voss grinned. "On it, Captain." Within minutes, the Plutonians had transformed the ruins into a defense zone. Portable barriers locked into place. Auto turrets unfolded and soldiers spread out, taking positions. The Clear noticed the humans and shrieked. A horrible, rattling sound before charging. "Hold," Maris ordered. The Plutonians waited until the swarm was almost on top of them. Then she gave the signal. Fire. The street exploded with light. Rail rifles cracked, turrets spat plasma bolts, and the first wave of Clear fell. But more came, climbing over the bodies of their fallen, screeching as they charged forward. "Grenades!" Voss shouted. Explosions tore through the enemy ranks, hurling fragments into the air. The Clear hesitated for a moment, and that hesitation was all the Plutonians needed. "Advance!" Maris commanded. The soldiers leapt over the barriers and pushed forward, sweeping the streets with disciplined bursts of fire. The humans fought like predators, quick, clever, and merciless. Inside the shelter, Dr. Ren Tallis watched the battle through a remote feed. The alien scientist could not believe what he was seeing. "They are advancing?" one of the younger Kelvarians asked, shocked. "The humans are outnumbered 10-1. Ren could only nod slowly. "They are not fighting to survive," he said softly. "They are fighting to win." Hours passed and the humans held the district. By nightfall, they had turned the Clear back. Fires burned on the horizon, but for the first time since the invasion began, there was silence in this part of the city. Maris stood over a map projected onto the hood of a supply crate. Voss approached, his armor scorched but his grin wide. "Sector clear," he reported. "Losses are light." "Ammo is holding," Maris nodded. "Good, but this was only the first push. They'll be back, and in greater numbers." Voss glanced at the dark skyline. "Then we hit them before they gather." The next morning, before dawn, the Plutonians struck. Instead of waiting for the enemy, they hunted them. Small strike teams moved through the ruins, using the narrow streets and broken buildings as cover. They planted charges at choke points, ambushed patrols, and lured the Clear into traps. One squad climbed the remains of a collapsed tower and used it as a sniper's nest. From there, they picked off the enemy leaders, throwing the swarm into confusion. Maris led one of the teams personally, carrying a heavy rifle. She was always at the front, her voice calm and steady over the comms. "Don't waste shots," she reminded her soldiers. "Every round must count. Make them think we are everywhere." By midday, the Clear's advance on that continent had slowed to a crawl. They were not used to prey that fought back, and certainly not prey that fought this hard, but the victory came at a cost. Near the western barricade, a soldier named Rin was caught by a Clear ambush. He managed to take out 3 of the creatures before falling, but his squad pulled him back too late to save him. When Maris heard the report, she closed her eyes for a moment, then nodded. We bury him at dawn. On Kelvar soil, this is what we do. We stand where others fall. That night, Ren Talis emerged from the shelters and approached the Plutonian camp. He found Maris standing near a fire cleaning her rifle. "You fight differently than any species I have seen," Ren said. Maris looked up, her face hard but not unkind. "We don't have the luxury of fighting safe, Doctor. Pluto never gave us that choice. Every day back home is a battle, against the cold, against hunger, against the planet itself. If we hesitate, we die. If we hide, we starve. So we learn to act fast." Ren studied her for a moment. "You risk everything. Even when you are outnumbered," Maris shrugged. "Risk is just another word for living. The Clear think fear will break us. They don't know what fear means to a Deathworlder." The next day, the Clear attacked again. But this time they came with heavy war machines. Massive walkers with plasma cannons mounted on their backs. "Those things will level the entire district," Voss shouted as explosions rocked the streets. Maris didn't flinch. "Then we take them down before they reach the civilians. Get me the last of the charges and then bring the EMP launchers." The Plutonians moved like lightning. 2 squads distracted the walkers, firing from multiple angles, while a 3rd squad planted explosive charges along a fallen monorail track. At the right moment, Maris gave the order. The charges went off, sending the track crashing down and trapping the walkers. "EMP now," she commanded. Blue pulses of energy washed over the machines. One by one, the walkers went dark, their legs locking as their systems failed. The Plutonians swarmed over them, planting grenades and finishing the job. When the smoke cleared, the Clear pulled back again, but this time, their retreat looked more like fear. As night fell, the Plutonians gathered around their makeshift base. They had held the city for 2 full days. "They will come again," Voss said, sitting beside Maris. "Next time with even more." Maris nodded. "Then we make our next move before they can gather. We hit their hive directly. If we cut off the head, the swarm dies." Voss raised an eyebrow. "That's a one-way mission." Maris looked at him, her expression calm. "Every mission is, Voss. The question is only whether it's worth it. And this one is." Far away, the Clear hive swarmed with activity. The humans had wounded them, humiliated them. Now they were gathering every force they had for one final attack, a storm that would sweep the entire continent clean. But the Deathworlders of Pluto were already preparing their own storm. The dawn sky over Kelvar 9 glowed red from the fires of war. Captain Maris Kane stood on the roof of a shattered tower, looking out over the ruined city. She had seen many battlefields in her life, but this one felt different. Voss climbed up behind her. "The scouts just returned," he reported. "The Clear are gathering every unit they have. Thousands of them. Their hive queen must be here. They'll attack at sunset." Maris nodded slowly. "Then we hit them before they hit us," Voss frowned. "You mean, attack the hive?" Maris turned to face him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were fierce. "Yes, if we wait, they'll crush us with numbers. But if we take out the queen, we break their command structure. The swarm will scatter." Voss hesitated. "Captain, we might not come back from this one." Maris smiled faintly. "Then we make sure it matters." The plan was simple but dangerous. The Plutonians would take their remaining dropships, fly straight into the heart of the Clear hive, and plant a chain of high-yield explosives near the central spire. Once detonated, the blast would collapse the entire underground nest. "Best guess is we have 5 minutes to escape after detonation," Voss told the soldiers during the briefing. A murmur passed through the group, but no one stepped back. Every Plutonian there knew the risk. Maris studied her troops. Their armor was dented, their weapons scratched, their faces tired, but their spirits burned bright. "Listen to me," she said, her voice steady. "If we succeed, Kelvar 9 lives. If we fail, billions die. There is no one else coming. We are the line. We are the storm. We are Plutonians." A cheer rose through the ranks. By midday, the dropships were in the air. The ride was silent except for the low hum of engines and the occasional click of weapons being checked. Ren Talis, who had insisted on coming, sat near the back. He carried no weapon, only a data recorder. "Why risk yourself?" Voss asked him. Ren looked at the soldier and said quietly, "Because someone must tell the story of what happens today." The hive came into view as the ships descended. It was massive, a dark, organic spire that rose from the ground like the tooth of some great beast. Thousands of clear swarmed around it, but the Plutonians didn't hesitate. "Go," Maris ordered. The ship swooped low, dodging anti-air fire, and dropped the soldiers just outside the spire's perimeter. The ground battle was fierce. The clear came in waves, shrieking, their claws flashing. The Plutonians fought in tight squads, covering each other as they advanced step by step toward the hive entrance. "Charges ready," Voss shouted over comms as his squad reached the base of the spire. "Plant them," Maris ordered. "We'll hold them off." The humans formed a line at the entrance and unleashed everything they had. Rifles, grenades, drones, anything to slow the swarm. The air filled with smoke and the sound of battle. Ren watched in awe as the humans fought. They moved like one creature, each person protecting the next, each step forward paid for with blood and fire. At last, Voss's voice came through. "Charges set. Timer running. 5 minutes. Fall back to the ships," Maris shouted. The retreat was chaos. The clear pressed hard, sensing their queen was in danger. Several Plutonians fell, but the others carried them, refusing to leave anyone behind. Maris was the last to leave the spire, covering her soldiers until the very end. "Everyone aboard," she yelled as she leapt into the last dropship. The ships roared skyward. From orbit, the explosion looked like a sunrise. The ground around the hive shook, split, and then collapsed. The spire folded in on itself, sending dust and debris high into the sky. On the ship, the soldiers watched silently. "It's over," Voss said at last, his voice quiet. Maris nodded. For now. The following days were spent sweeping the city for stragglers. Without their queen, the clear scattered. Some fled into the wilderness. Others simply stopped moving and died where they stood. When the last nest was cleared, the Kelvarians came out of their shelters. Dr. Ren Talis stood before Maris, his 4 hands clasped in respect. "You saved our world. We will never forget this." Maris shook her head. "We didn't come for thanks, Doctor. We came because someone had to stand here, and no one else could make it in time." Ren smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But history will remember that when we called for help, it was the Deathworlders who answered." Weeks later, the Plutonian fleet prepared to leave. Repairs had been made, fallen soldiers honored, and Kelvar 9's defenses strengthened. Voss approached Maris as they stood on the loading ramp. "The Union finally sent reinforcements. They're offering us medals." Maris looked out at the bright Kelvarian sky. "Medals don't matter. What matters is the job is done." Voss grinned. "You always say that." Maris allowed herself a small smile. "Because it's true." The ramp closed and the ships lifted off, leaving behind a world forever changed. In the rebuilt city, Ren Talis activated his recorder one final time. "This is the official record of the Battle of Kelvar 9, he said. "The clear came to conquer, but they were met by a small force from a frozen world at the edge of Sol. The Plutonians, humans from Pluto, stood their ground, and in doing so they saved not only Kelvar 9, but the future of this entire region of space. They fought like no other species I have seen. They fought not just to survive but to win, and they showed us all why the galaxy calls them Deathworlders." He turned off the recorder and looked up at the sky. Somewhere, far away, the Plutonians were already on their way back to their harsh, frozen home. But their legend would remain.